Okay, brilliant. I think that's most people have arrived. There might be some people that join us along the way. And this video will be recorded and put on YouTube as well. So if anybody is slightly late, or if anyone would like to pass this on to colleagues, as I say, please do look out for our YouTube video and feel free to share that. So yeah, to begin with, my name is Pav. I'm a Senior Account Manager here at Qlic. We are an IT support provider for charities. For those of you that have met with us before and have been to our webinars previously, welcome back. And for those of you that are newer or we haven't met previously, just a little bit of an introduction to Qlic. And I'll also introduce Emina from Vixen Digital, who will be hosting today's webinar. And Vixen are fantastic. They've been working with us now for a couple of years and have been pivotal to our success in regards to our web presence and our journey online. So yes, Qlic IT, we are an IT support provider for charities. We like to think of ourselves as a one-stop shop for all of your IT requirements, and we cover everything from your managed IT support services and your day-to-day operations, obviously into the more niche aspects of cybersecurity and cloud services. We do an incredible amount of consultancy and IT strategies with the organisations that we support, and device management and procurement is obviously a large part of our offering as well. And of course, website development, which is something that we're incredibly proud of here at Qlic, and we've been doing for a number of years now. And for us, web development is a passion, it's a labour of love. So please do look at our portfolio, which you'll be able to see on our website. And it goes without saying, if there are any questions for us today, for Qlic in particular, there will be a link within the chat area. Do feel free to schedule a consultation with myself or one of my colleagues, and likewise with Emina for all things web and SEO related as well. So what makes us charity centric? Well, that's really our approach. We've been working with organisations of all shapes and sizes now for well over a decade, in fact closer to 2 decades now. We really do understand the non-profit sector better than most other providers out there. That's become apparent over the years. We work very well within the boundaries and the constraints such as budget and technology requirements and the specific licensing and services that are available to charities. And we're very aware of the security requirements for organisations as well. So as I say, any IT related questions, feel free to reach out to us here at Qlic, and we'll be glad to help. But for the purposes of today's webinar, which we've been really excited to get to, we're looking at the top 5 digital marketing pillars for better community outcomes. And I will hand over to Emina shortly, and then she'll cover the topics including the audience first content strategy, reach and growth, engagement, action, and data-driven optimizations. We really do encourage interactions here at Qlic, so please feel free to add any questions that you might have to the Q&A within Teams. You'll see that there should be a Q&A button above me here somewhere. And likewise, there will also be a poll at one point during the presentation. So please keep an eye out for that in the chat, where you can be part of that poll and help Emina there as well. So yeah, without further ado, I'd like to hand you over to Emina, who will go through the webinar with you, and then I'll be here at the end in the quick Q&A as well. So I look forward to answering any questions you might have. Thank you very much, and yeah, over to you, Emina.
Hi, hopefully you can hear me. Excellent. So thank you, Pavan, for such a great introduction. Just to say, we love working with Qlic as well. So it's kind of the relationship is lovely mutually. And today we're going to be talking about my favorite topic, which is digital marketing. Now, let's first do a bit of an intro to myself and also to Vixen as an agency. So Vixen Digital is a Brighton-based agency. We're a small agency working in Brighton, and we work across sectors. So B2B, B2C, B2Government, B2G, and also we do quite a bit on the charity side as well. Now, part of the reason why we do quite a bit on the charity side is also because that's a big passion of mine. I have over 10 years of experience in-house and agency. And I have a lot of charity experience, which is including somebody you probably know, which is Locality. I've spent years working in Locality, running their digital organizers program. So I was the lead on digital organizers, all of the community organizers. And as part of that, we ran a course called Digital Organizers, which was all about using digital tools for community development. And I worked also with a number of UN agencies and smaller charities as well. So quite a big love for the non-profit sector. I'm a full stack marketer. My focus is, I love SEO. So if I was to play favorites, it would be SEO. But I also dabble into paid and analytics, and hopefully that experience is something that will be useful here as well. And I write for industry publications and do speaking and things like that. Right. So without further ado, let's talk a little bit about what we're going to cover. We're going to cover, firstly, an audience-first content strategy. So that's kind of the first part, is around your content strategy. Then we're going to be looking at how to actually, once you know who you're writing to, how do you actually reach that audience and how do you grow? Then it's about engagement. So it's not just okay to be kind of a loudspeaker and get your message out there without having that two-way communication and engaging people as well. And obviously action, so converting that engagement into impact on your website. And lastly, but not least, one of my favorites, which is around data. So how do you optimize continuously based on the data that you are getting from your results? All right, so let's start with content. Now, one of the really important things about a content strategy is something that we talk about a lot in marketing, is around your audience. So for charities, that audience might be volunteers, they're donors, they're the community members that they serve. It really depends on what your charity does and who your audience is. But one of the most important things is to first start with understanding that audience. One of the things that we do with Qlic as well is around audience mapping and user journey mapping and thinking about your personas. Now, a persona has, I don't know how many of you are familiar with this idea of a persona, but it has a bit of a bad rap in marketing, because historically, when you do a persona, sometimes it's not very useful. It just talks about who, where those people are, which is useful, but it's not the only thing that should be in there. You need to be thinking about not just where that audience is, but who they are. So what do they care about? What are their pain points? What are you trying to solve? And it's not just one audience. You need to think about your donors as a specific audience, your volunteers as a specific audience, and then your community members and the service users as a specific one as well. So it's very important to start from building these personas, and then you think about what your objectives are. So for each of the personas, you will have a particular objective that you want to reach, and they are going to be very different objectives, because these people have different needs, different pain points, and different goals. Then once you've done that, you think about the key themes. So based on your objective and everything that you know about your persona, you need to be thinking about what are they interested in? What are some of the key topics that you can be talking about in your content that will engage them? Only after that, you're going into a content plan. Now, hopefully many of you have content plans for your website and for your social media. But if you don't, I think it's very important to be thinking about what kind of content you're going to be producing before it happens. It's great to be reactive, but it's also really important to strategize and prepare before anything actually happens, because otherwise you're not going to reach your goals. And then lastly, with content, one of the most important things is thinking about your distribution. So what are kind of the channels that you're going to be using to distribute this content? And we'll talk a little bit about that. And thinking about repurposing as well. one of the major pitfalls that all organizations have, including charities, is around repurposing. That amazing white paper that you have written shouldn't be just a white paper. It should also be a video, it should be a podcast, it should be a bunch of social media posts. So you need to be thinking about each piece of content, each asset that you have. How can you repurpose it and use it long term? The amount of times I have seen websites create amazing content just to be forgotten after a couple of months is just, it's incredible. It's really baffling. So if there was one piece of advice around content that I would always give to people, it's repurpose it. Think about how you can use it across all of the channels. And then obviously keeping it fresh. That's particularly important for search engine optimization, which we're going to be talking about in a second, which is basically ranking on search engines like Google and Bing. Right, so a little bit about this. I've spoken about it now. I'm going to send you the PDF of this presentation so that you have it, but I thought it might be interesting for you guys to be able to refer to it later on, just to have a slide of everything that I've now spoken about. The other thing is I've linked to, there's a lot of content planning templates out there. The one that is quite user-friendly and at the same time is quite detailed is the SEMrush one. So I don't know how much you know about SEMrush, but it's a search engine optimization tool, quite a big one, a really good one. It's a paid tool, but they do a bunch of really useful resources, and one of them is this content strategy template that I've linked to, and you can just make a copy and start thinking about your content as being audience-led rather than organization-led or content-led. Hopefully that makes sense. Right. So, just to say, I know we're going to have a Q&A at the end, but please do, if you have a question or anything, please pop it in the chat box. Jenny, if you can, you're keeping an eye on the chat box anyway. And if there is a question about a specific section of the presentation that you would like me to answer, I'm completely happy to kind of answer questions as we go as well. So yeah, Jenny, let me know. All right, reach and growth. So we spoke about how you should be approaching your content as audience first, but if you create content and it just sits there on your website, it's not good for anybody because it's not reaching that audience. If you create something, obviously you want it to have the reach, because without the reach, there's no real impact. But how do you actually do that? There's a few channels that you can use, and obviously, so organic social is there, paid is there, search engine optimization is there. It depends on who your audience is, which one you're going to be leveraging for your reach. But the two that really work really well at scale, and for everybody really, is SEO and paid advertising. So the goal here, not the SMART goal, you should have like SMART goals for each of the audiences, but the general goal of SEO and paid advertising is around maximizing visibility with the right digital tools and strategies. Yeah, sounds simple, maybe not that simple, depends. And there are some core tactics that are very much relevant for everybody, but also some of them specifically for the charity and non-for-profit sector. First, SEO. So SEO essentials, I don't know how much you know about them, but SEO is very much based on thinking about who your audience is, real SEO, not the spam, who your audience is, and then thinking about what topics they're interested in, and then within those topics, what keywords, what areas you want to cover to serve that audience better, and serve search engines better. So there's no such thing as writing for search engines or writing for audience. It should all be about writing for your audience. But with a few tweaks for what's called on-page optimizations, you can make sure that your content is a little bit more discoverable, and that it's indexed well, and then that it can be crawled by bots. So there's a bit of technical there. Then another part that is very relevant for charities in SEO is around accessibility. Obviously, charities, everybody should really have an accessible website, but that's one of the things that I would say charities pioneer quite a lot, and it's really lovely to see. So that's part of it. Many times what you're going to hear is, oh, SEO and accessibility don't go together, but I'm of the opinion that they do go together. It's just about how you do it. Then the second kind of channel is Google Ads. Now, you probably know about Google Ads. They're much more known than search engine optimization, partly because whatever you're looking for in Google, it's the ads that you see first. Now, as an SEO, obviously, I'm not particularly happy with that, but there is no doubt that Google Ads is one of the best channels for charities if they want to get out there quickly and they want reach. And the really good thing about Google Ads is that they do charity grants. And I'll walk you through that in a minute. Then the third one is paid social. Now, particularly if your audience is, so for example, if you're working with young users, you definitely don't want to be ignoring paid platforms, paid ads on platforms such as Instagram, TikTok, all of the stuff that my 9-year-old is trying to use desperately, but I'm not letting her because she's 9. But you do want to do the paid ads on these platforms depending on where your audience is. Funnily enough, Facebook, that used to be a platform where when I was younger, it was so popular and all of my friends were on it. Now it is very much, the audience there has changed, and it's very much filled with people my age now. So we kind of grew up with Facebook, and the young people kind of stopped using it, but we stayed. So think about, when you're thinking about your social, what is the audience? This is why you start from the audience first, because you need to think about, is your audience actually on that platform? And that connects to paid social campaigns as well. Right. So a very, very quick intro to SEO, because I'm mindful of time and I know that I'm talking at you at the moment. So SEO has a lot of tools that you can take advantage of. Some of them are free, some of them are paid for. If I was to tell you one thing that you need to do if you want to appear on Google and understand how you appear on Google, it would be to install what's called Google Search Console, and put that on your website. Make sure that it's all enabled, because that is the main tool that will show you, not everything, but most of the things that you need to know to understand how Google is ranking you. So it has several elements in it. I was going to show you how it looks like, but I am mindful of time. So if you're interested, I can give you like a tour of it separately. But Google Search Console has 3 reports that I would always recommend to people to look at. First of all is your technical. Now, that's the tricky one. If you're not technical, understanding things that are technical in Google Search Console, it can be a little bit tricky, but it's still really important that you have a look at it, because the technical side of things can tell you very important elements, such as if you put a piece of content live and that content is not showing on Google, then there must be something wrong with either Google crawling that page or indexing that page. And you can check that using the live URL tool in Google Search Console. Then there's several on-page elements as well, which is basically your search results. Google Search Console will show you things like pages that are ranking, keywords that they're ranking for, so queries that they're ranking for. Not all of them, but it will show you the main ones. It will show you the links that you have from other websites as well. So a very good overview of how your website is performing on Google specifically. And then the third one, which is a really interesting one, it is around user experience. Now, Google is always saying user experience is super important, and it is super important. They've developed this rating system, what's called Core Website Vitals, to say, okay, your website is user-friendly or your website is not user-friendly. Now, don't get caught up too much in those. In my industry, there's been a big boom when that came out. Oh, everybody needs to have a green light on Core Website Vitals. It's not true. I've seen websites with terrible scores that are ranking incredibly well. Where this is actually useful is just thinking about the users. If your website is super, super slow, that is not good for your users. It's not about whether Google is going to rank you. It's about how your users and how the people that you're trying to help are experiencing your website. So I've put in a link to a new tool that they've developed this year, which is CR UX Viz. And that gives you the Core Website Vitals on a website level, on the whole website level, which is really useful. So if anything, I would have a look at that and see whether there's things that you can improve to serve your users better rather than Google. And I've linked to a couple of things here as well. I've made a blog a while ago around free and paid SEO tools as well. There's a few on there that have that I think have non-profit pricing as well. But one of the things that I would say is always ask if you can get a discount for a tool because you're a charity and non-profit. Often tools do not have that on their website, but if you ask them, they will give you a discount. So this is what I found when I was at Locality. I always got discounts. And then the second part of SEO, as I said, is around accessibility. So accessibility on the internet has, I don't know how familiar you are with it, but it has standards. They're called WCAG standards. There's ways, free tools that you can use, such as the 2 extensions that I have mentioned, that will basically tell you how people with disabilities are experiencing your website. So things like screen readers, things like contrast of your branding and things like that. So have a look at the extensions and play around. Even small tweaks. It doesn't have to be a massive accessibility project. It can be something ongoing. And when you're working with a website designer, you need to be thinking about working with somebody who understands accessibility and is using tools like this to ensure that from the get-go your site is accessible. Right, Google Ads. I know this one is the one that charities are interested in quite a lot, partly because you get some free funding to run ads. It's up to 7K a month, I believe, at the moment. But there are obviously some requirements. First of all, you need to be registered and you have to have charity status. You need to complete the eligibility form, and you need to have a high quality website that meets the Google's ad grants policy. Now, in the next slide, I've linked to the help center that will give you loads of resources and with what you need to hit. But there's some top tips that I would share. When you're applying, you have to, it's a lengthy process. It's not something that you apply and you get just like that. It is a lengthy process. So take that in mind, but keep that in mind before you go through it. And it takes time. Assure compliance management. So maintaining your grants is connected to how well you're following Google's policies. So for example, If you get the grant and you run the ads for a month and you're not logging into your account, you're not tweaking your ads, you're not doing anything with them, they're going to take away the grant. You're not going to get it the next month. So it's one of those things that if you decide to go for it, you need to put in the time and emphasize measurable impact. So one of the things that you need to understand with Google Ads in particular is that the opportunity is there, you've got the budget, but you need to show that actually there is some engagement, that you're driving donations and anything else with your Google Ads. And then lastly, if you don't have team members that are good at running Google Ads or somebody who's driven to learn, it's not like super difficult to learn them to the point where you can test out and do things on your own. But it does have its quirks and intricacies and things like that. So if you don't have somebody who's driven enough to actually put in the time to properly manage your grants, then think about outsourcing. I've put in a useful resource that we've developed, which is a free paid ad audit. And as I said, Google Grants Help Center. I don't know how I'm doing with time. But hopefully I'm on track because I have a feeling that there's a lot here. Then the lastly is the paid social side of things. You can decide to do ads on so many platforms these days. I feel like every day there's a new platform that is popular and popping out. But there's a difference between paid and organic. While a platform can be great for organic, that doesn't mean that it's going to be great for paid, because for paid ads, what's most important is that the platform that you're using has really good targeting, so that you are able to segment the audience on that platform enough to target the right ones for you. So I've put in a couple of advice on that. Meta, it works really well for awareness and remarketing. And as I said, the audience, it depends on Instagram. It's usually a younger audience than on Facebook. Twitter, I have ran several ads in Twitter previously, and they are not great in terms of the targeting. So if you're going to be using Twitter ads, it needs to be something that's quite wide, very awareness driven. TikTok, brilliant for a younger audience. So for example, if you're trying a volunteer push or signups for events, but it is quite limited when it comes to targeting. So their paid is only now being really developed. And then LinkedIn, which is absolutely, it's my favorite platform. It's excellent for B2B, and it's also excellent for charities looking to get donors in. Because it's a really good platform in terms of getting your thought leadership out there to the right people, the decision makers in these donor communities. I would say that it's super expensive though, so you do pay quite a lot when you're advertising on LinkedIn. Okay. Top tips, obviously, define your goals. It all starts from your audience and your goals. Make sure you're using the right platform. Use platform-specific tools for fundraising in particular. So each of these platforms allows you to customize the ads based on who you are as an organization and your audience. So things like donation stickers on Instagram or a donate button, YouTube link cards, and things like that. Another point is try and experiment and test. You don't want to be running one ad forever and only focus on formats such as a text ad, because it just doesn't give the audience enough of an So you need to think about testing different formats on ad platforms to get the best impact, really, to see what works. Because sometimes we ran tests where I was sure that a video ad would perform much better on Instagram, kind of a real ad, and actually didn't. It was the image one that performed much better. So sometimes you kind of think one thing, but without testing it out, you won't actually know. And lastly, track and optimize performance. Obviously, we're going to be talking a little bit more about about tracking, so I won't go into details here, but anything with paid social, it's not cheap. Budgets are very tight, particularly for non-profits. So you do want to make sure that you're actually measuring that performance and not wasting your money. Again, I've linked to a couple of useful resources. We have a meta audit in particular, and there's a few bits and pieces on our website, so check it out. Right. Engagement. We spoke about reach, but what about engaging that audience? Now, engagement happens across all of the platforms. However, the two that are quite good at building these relationships are email and organic social. Now, why they're good is because they're very powerful at building that connection. Social in particular, I mean, think about it. It's kind of a two-way street. With organic social, not that with paid it isn't, but most of the time you use paid to go bottom of the funnel, so to get donations or to get people to come to your event. With organic social, it's very much about the kind of the engagement that you're having on your posts rather than the action that you're trying to run. Key components. Email marketing is great at keeping your audience up to date, so staying top of mind, but it's very important that you don't spam people. And then social media, great at building a community through authentic engagement. One of the things that I would say with organic reach is that it's very limited. I mean, it's not surprising. These platforms have paid services, so why would they give you the organic reach when, excuse me, they can get you to pay for reach? So they are trying to push you into paid social by giving your organic posts very little reach. But don't get it discouraged, because as I said, for organic social, it's not about the reach, it's about the engagement that you're having. A couple of best practices, a bit of a closer look. One of the things that you want to do, particularly in these two channels, is showcase your values and your impact. So clearly communicate your mission, show the real impact your work has on your service users or on the community, and make sure that you're sharing things like stories, testimonials, projects updates. All of that is perfect when it comes to email and organic social. Engage and build relationships. So run Q&A sessions, comments, polls. In email, think about kind of how you can segment your list so that you're not sending irrelevant or not personalized updates to your audience. So think about in your forms on your website, what can you ask that audience that will help you segment your email list? So for example, what topics they're interested in, their demographics, and it will also help you with your persona files, because after a while you have enough information to see, hang on a minute, so this is the persona, this is the audience that I think we're targeting, but looking at our data from the forms and from the emails, that actually isn't true. They're actually interested in these other things. So it all kind of fits together as well. And then at the end, inspire action and involvement. I mean, one of the things that I see happening all the time, not just in the non-for-profit sector, but also in general, is around call to actions. Brilliant email or a brilliant post that has been created for organic social or anywhere else without a call to action. You need to be thinking about what you're trying to. This is why it's important to do the goals first, because the goals then tell you what calls to action you should be putting in the content and in the messages that you're pushing into your audience. And again, think about interactive elements. So visual content is really good, and it also will encourage people to take immediate action, and it will keep your audience engaged as well. Measuring success. Again, measuring. It's all about measuring how you're doing and then tweaking and doing better. And with email marketing, I mean, it's about tracking open rates, click-through rates, comments on social media, shares on social media. So it really, one of the things that you should be doing when you have your goals, it's thinking about your KPIs, so your key performance indicators for that particular goal. So if you're running awareness campaigns, your goals, your KPIs are going to be very much different than if you're trying to do a fundraising donation, for example. Okay. Right. I wanted to have a look at what has been going on since I stopped working in the charity sector a couple of years ago, directly as an in-house marketer, to see whether I can get inspired with anything recent that has been happening on social media in particular. It's interesting because we still talk a lot about the campaigns, quite older campaigns. I mean, the one by Cancer Research UK was in 2014. They did a campaign around no makeup selfie. I don't know how many of you have heard about it, but it raised 8 million in just 6 days. Now, I don't think every fundraising campaign will do that. And I think it was kind of a perfect storm of things when they did that, and that allowed them to raise so much money. But one of the things that you can learn from that campaign is around creating content that is easily shareable, that's very on trend. I mean, they did not invent the no makeup selfie. It was something that was already kind of trending on social media. What they did is latched onto that trend and made it relevant for them and made it drive good, which is brilliant. And then the other one that I found was, again, a bit of a recent one, 2020, which is the great Allman Street Hospital. They did kind of a post about VAM, Vamageddon. So it's really a funny one because actually, you know, it's kind of latching on to something comical, which is always a good idea when you're doing a social media, organic in particular. But again, it depends on your audience. So everything needs to start audience first. I did get some examples from recently, but it's very difficult to, this is the thing, it's very difficult to know what the impact was, because what we're trying to achieve here isn't just a post that's going to get a lot of engagement. It's about what's the KPIs, what are you trying to achieve with that post, what are the actual results of that post, whatever they might be. Right. Action. Now, engagement is brilliant, reach is brilliant, but what do we do about action? How do we get people to actually donate or actually come to our events? How do we get people to go from reach, engagement to action? Now, we spoke about this before. It is about CTAs as well, calls to actions on your emails, on your social media accounts, on basically everything. Everything needs to be kind of driven towards action. But one of the interesting things is that the main place of action is always your website. Now, where this then comes into play is something called conversion rate optimization. Now, that's a term that's very, very well known in the private sector and in the charity sector, but it's basically about optimizing your website so that it drives conversions. Now, for the private sector, a conversion can be somebody filling out your form on the website for your services. It could be somebody for an e-commerce site. It could be somebody who buys something from you. For a charity, it's about the donations, it's about volunteer recruitment, it's about people who are coming to your events. So those are kind of converting events for a charity. And for that to happen, you need to make sure that your website is geared up for it. So your website needs to have a user-centric design, so be the navigation needs to be simple. There needs to be a very clear journey for people who are on the website to take the action. So donation CTAs and anything depending on your website, what is important for you. All of that needs to be at the tip of your fingers, basically, as a user when you land on a website. And then there's the storytelling aspect. It's incredibly important for charities to tell the stories of the impact that they're having on their communities, through testimonials. Transparent fund usage is a really, really good one for donors. They need to be talking about experiences that they've had in terms of like pitching for funds, if they're government funds, for example. So tell the story of all of these things on your website, because that will be building enough trust for somebody to actually click on the donation button, or for a government organization to give you the funding, or whatever your goal may be. You need to tell the stories to get people to the action, to do the action. Right. So focus area, as I said. Oh, right. Now, it would be really good to do a very quick live. I've never done this before, so hopefully it goes well. A live critique of your homepage. So pop your website into the chat, and I will try and give you some pointers on what you should be doing with that homepage. Now, it's there's quite a bit of you here, so it's kind of a first come, first serve. Excellent. Look, now, let's see who is first. All right. Oh, Samantha, right. I think Samantha was first. Let's see. Hopefully. I'm using two screens now, so it's a bit of a fuff. Now, stop sharing. I'm going to stop sharing, and then I'm going to share the VAC website with you guys. Samantha, are you okay with me like critiquing publicly like this? This is the other thing. I ran websites, and I was very precious around my websites as well when I ran them. So please let me know in the chat if it's okay for me to do this on in front of everybody. Yeah, I haven't seen. Okay, I'm fine. We're improving it. Okay, good. Excellent. Brilliant. So hopefully you'll be able to see this. Share. All right. Let's have a look at this now. So one of the first things that I see immediately here is this bit of the website. It's called Above the Fold. Yeah. It's really good that you're saying clearly who you're supporting, but I am not immediately as a user driven to an action. So I don't know how I can support you other than going into contact. So what is your first KPIs? What are you trying to get people to do ideally on your website? Put that into the Above the Fold, whether that is contacting you, whether that is volunteering, whether that is anything that you think is the primary thing that you want people to do when they land on the website. Put that in the fold. I'm also, as a user, thinking, I love the fact that you're promoting and supporting charities and community groups across Arran and Chichester. But I want to immediately have a feeling of what the impact is here, because if I'm going to take that action that you're trying to get me to do, above the fold, I'm going to want to see what impact you're having. Okay, I love the fact that you're giving it kind of here. The services that you provide, that's all good. And then I love the fact that you have your blogs here. I want to see that. Upcoming events. Are events important to you? Is that something that's kind of driving this website? If it is, they are a little bit further down than what I would like them to be, because I'm wondering whether is this latest from VAC, is that more important than the events that you have? Maybe it is. Maybe you're trying to push content out there more than actually getting people to come to the event. But I would have thought that you want the volume of people at the events more than actually putting in the content, the latest of VAC. I like the fact that you have lots of actions here, which is really good. Become a member. I mean, this is the first time that I'm actually finding out that you can become a member. Oh no, it's here. Well, maybe being a member is something that you value the most. Maybe that is something that you need to put in your above the fold rather than having it here. Now, social media side of things, it's cute. I like the kind of design of it, but I would always put that somewhere in the footer, because it's taking a lot of real estate here when actually thinking about website norms, people are usually looking for it either here in the footer or as you did here in the top. But again, I mean, are you doing a lot on social media? If I click on one of your social media accounts, am I going to find a social media account that is very well Facebook only? This is what I mean. If you're doing just Facebook, you have so many here. So as a user, I'm going to be clicking on this. You've told me this is important for us because it's all the way on the top, but you don't do much on LinkedIn, or you don't do much on Twitter. You don't want to advertise that. You want to advertise something that you actually do. You don't want somebody clicking on there and looking at your LinkedIn and seeing that it hasn't been updated since I don't know when. Now, in terms of your top nav is super, super, super important. This is why you kind of have to be thinking about what your goal is with your website. This top nav, it doesn't have too many things on it, but I would kind of think about simplifying that a little bit. So what do you actually do? You have your about us, but then what are some of the services that you are providing? Can you put that under like services or supporting the community, and then put some of these underneath it? You have events and you have news. I'm wondering whether you put that under resources, so that just to simplify that top now a little bit more. But the most important thing that I want to tell you is get that impact on this homepage. I do not see much of the impact, and I'm sure that you have loads of it. Let's see if I don't know if you can. I've clicked on impact. Hopefully you can see this. Right, from our members. There we have a report. That is like, seriously, you have some incredible things here. You have statements, testimonials from your members. Why is that not on the homepage? That should be smack on the homepage. This is what I'm interested in. I want to see the impact that you're making. From our members, our impact here, annual impact report. That's brilliant. Wow, nice one. So you seem to have in your annual impact report, you have some incredible stats. 774 volunteers placed, 20 strategic partnerships. I would love to see logos of those strategic partners there. That will build trust and legitimacy. 483 members. That is amazing. All of these stats should be on your homepage. So hopefully that was helpful. There's a lot that I would do here. I could go on. I do like looking at website, but have a look at the report that you have. So the annual report that I'm looking at now is full of amazing things that should be on your homepage. More than 500 funding secured. I mean, this is just incredible impact. I want that on the homepage. If you do one thing, then I would be putting these stats and all of this impact smack in the middle of that page, so that whoever lands on your website immediately sees all the amazing work you're doing. So, all right. Okay, hopefully that was useful. Let me just share my screen again and we shall continue. Right. So, website, best practices, effective CTAs. You need to make sure that direct language, if your CTA is to donate, just say donate. If it is about downloading a resource, say download. Don't try and kind of put it behind language that nobody understands. A locality site, their main CTA is to become a member. So you can see how they've ensured that their CTA to becoming a member, which is the most important thing for them, is up here. And it's in yellow and it's in your face the second you come to the website. Donation pages, keep forms short. So make sure you offer multiple payment options these days, particularly when you're thinking about donations that are done on mobile. It's important to understand that a lot of people who might donate have Apple devices, so ensuring that Apple Pay is enabled is one of the things that, if you're thinking about mobile, that I would definitely recommend. As I said, trust signals, testimonials, accreditations, secure checkout process to enforce credibility. All of these things are really important. And then lastly, test it. It's super important to test your website. And this is not, I'm not talking about fancy technical, paying for, tools that give you the ability to A/B test. Yeah, that's brilliant. If you have the budget for that, do it. I'm talking about testing with your users. I used to sit in, when I worked for one of the charities that I worked for, like consulted for, their website, one of the audiences was young people. And when we were going through the website development, what I did is I used to go to Falmer University here in Brighton, near Brighton. And I used to sit in their lobby and do live user testing just for a few hours, showing them the website as it is, and then showing them the plans before it went into development. Incredible amount of data information and things that I thought that I was right in the new designs, but actually when I did the testing, I realized that there was a lot of things that I kind of assumed were true, but were not actually true. And the only thing I used for this was about 10 years ago. The only thing that I used for it is this book called Rocket Surgery Made Easy, done by one of the biggest experts in usability and user experience, which is Steve Krug. So I'll put the link in here. But any testing that you can do before you go into development is really, really important. It will only do you good. And then lastly, we're talking about data and optimizing. Now, before we go into this bit, we have a bit of a poll. So in the chat, Pavan just put in a poll that's around how it's about your data maturities. How data mature are you? Are you a pro? Do you have some analytics skills? Or you don't have anything on the website? Excellent. Having some people come in so far. It seems like, I'll let it run, but I mean, it looks like we have some analytics. It's definitely top response there, which is great. Okay, well, you're already there in terms of understanding that you should have some analytics. It depends on what analytics they are. And honestly, it's not about the tools. It's about your measurement framework at the start. So this is why it's super important. We always talk about SMART goals, and I know SMART goals exist in charity work when you're working with programs and stuff. It's the same thing with digital marketing. You need to think about your SMART goals, and then you think about how you're going to measure them. So if you don't do that piece of work at the start, it's not gonna, no tools can help you. Right. Continuous improvement for better results is basically why we're doing it. So the purpose here is obviously to show impact of all of the digital marketing and the digital strategies that you're using. But it's also to use the data on an ongoing basis to refine and improve those strategies. And that's not easy. And it's also not 100% correct. So there's this myth that attribution we could attribute in digital marketing. I don't think that has ever been true. It is definitely not true these days, with privacy being front of mind, which as a user I think is great. As a marketer, I would like to be able to target my ads more effectively, but I think it's very important what's happening on the privacy side, and I think it's only a good thing. And we're in this position now where we need to understand that the tracking that we do and the impact that we're showing, it's not 100% correct. I don't think it ever was, if I'm honest. One of the reasons is that platforms are also moving towards showing less and less data. So hence my my Star Trek meme here. GA4, it's one of those pains in our lives at the moment. Universal Analytics was so much better. But it is what it is, and we have it. And if there was one tool that I would say you want to put on your website, it would be Google Analytics. So if you don't have that, you should. Now, in terms of specifically thinking about how to measure things, it really depends on your goals. But I did put in here a few things to inspire you. So when you're doing your goals, to inspire you thinking about the KPIs that you should be putting against those goals. So social media, as I said, engagement, stuff like likes, comments, shares, saves, follower growth. Now, I know for a fact that a lot of the times you have targets that are connected to follower growth. In fact, I'm not going to say which organization, but one of the non-for-profits that I worked with, they had it in their grant criteria. So it was a target from the funders to have X amount of followers. Personally, I don't think that's a very good target, because you can buy followers, and that's not really what you should be aiming for. You should always be aiming for quality rather than quantity. You could have 100 followers on a platform, but if they are the right followers, you can reach your goals very easily. Whereas you can have thousands and thousands. If they're not the right followers, there's no point. You're just reaching an audience that's not relevant for you. Content performance, so high engagement formats, videos, stories. I mean, all of these platforms have analytics attached to them. Explore those analytics, see what you can track and how. Obviously, event signups, registrations from social media promotions, and so forth. And as I said, for the website, Google Analytics. So one of the things that you can do with Google Analytics, which is really, really cool, is you can do a donation funnel. So as long as you are tracking your donations within your Google Analytics, you can do a funnel that basically tells you from your homepage through the rest of your pages, how the users move, those users that actually donate, what are they interested in? And that's super useful, because think about it. If you know what the journey is for those people who donate as opposed to those people who don't, then you can redesign your website so that those things that are actually driving donations are front and center. Event signups, again, tracking registration on event pages. One of the things that people do quite a lot with Google Analytics is set it up, but then don't set any of the goals and no events. In GA4, they're called key events. make sure that you have set up custom key events and not just relying on the ones that are in Google Analytics, because they're not great. And obviously you can, do different things like top content pages, referral sources, anything basically. I've put in a resource that we've developed, which is a GA4 audit template. So please download it and have a look at your setup. It's quite helpful. Email marketing, we spoke a little bit about it. Open rates, they are terrible at the moment, partly because of the privacy side of things. So I wouldn't necessarily worry about dropping open rates. I think it's a matter of us not tracking it anymore properly. Conversion rates, so monitoring donations, event signups. As I said, you can do that either in your email platform or with GA4. Unsubscribe rates, very important to watch those. If you see a big trend of unsubscribes, there might be something up. Maybe you're sending too many emails. List growth is a very interesting one. So that connects to enabling that action on your website. So if you have a newsletter, you need to put that on your website somewhere visible so that people can actually sign up, and then you can have a KPI that is around how much you want to grow your list year on year or month on month. Paid advertising, bunch of ways to track that. I mean, one of the most important one is return on ad spend, and basically it's the budget. So how much are you investing as opposed to what you're getting on the other side of it. It's an interesting one with charities, because technically the budget, if you're doing the grants, then the budget comes from Google. So there's a slightly less pressure on it, but I find that that's not as helpful, because often I've seen charities do the grants, go through the whole process, and then just not have time to manage the accounts. Which is a shame, because you can really do a lot with Google Ads as a charity, but it's just about putting in the work. And then lastly, volunteer community engagement, volunteer sign up, social interactions, event participation, basically a lot of things that you can measure. The question is, what is important to you? What is important to your audience? And have you done the work before you've enabled all of this analytics and put all of this effort in your websites and all of this technological side of things? Have you done the work on your audiences, understanding who your audience is, and thinking about what your goals are and what your KPIs, so how you're going to measure the success of those goals? I think if you start with that, then everything after it flows. Otherwise, it just won't happen, no matter which technology or no matter what you do. If you haven't done the planning properly, it's not going to work.
Thank you ever so much for your time, and we look forward to seeing you all again soon. Cheers. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.